Please give a warm welcome to our panel.
Thank you so much. We are absolutely thrilled to be here today with the Canadian Coach Association and to celebrate World Mental Health Day. So thank you so much, everyone, for your attention today and for being here. Before we get into these our amazing guests and conversation, we're just going to go through and tell you a little bit about the Canadian Coach Association and some resources that they have for students and for coaches. When we look at mental health and in sport and in life, we really need to find a place to feel safe and to be aware of our friends, and especially for coaches to be aware of signs and being able to observe mental health with our athletes and students. 1 in 10 young girls find it hard to talk about their mental health in life and in sport, but also in the bigger picture, we really need to understand that we have to have the courage and being bold to be able to find an avenue to talk about our stress and mental health. Here is the resource, the hub from the Canadian Coach Association, and it's a free online portal. And you can get it anytime. And I was on it last week, guys, and it is so good. The resource is there. You can find it. It's easy. It's clickable. And I need easy when it comes to technology. So please feel free and spend some time in looking through it, because it is such a great avenue for yourself and to help others that are in need. So the good part. I am sitting here with Molly and Carl today, and they are two amazing athletes and advocates for mental health. And we're just going to go through a conversation. We're going to leave you guys with time at the end to ask any questions that you may want. But we're going to start with Carl, because he's getting the mic right now. And I would love for you to tell these amazing students right now, what does mental health mean to you? And if you ever experienced mental stress or mental health in your life.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah, I think for me, I think it stems from probably like my university days when I was an athlete. It never really occurred to me necessarily growing up kind of talking about mental health and all that, but I think I moved from Ottawa to Hamilton, so to go to McMaster. So moving 500 miles away from your family, and for the first time, actually, I did all my education in French. So now doing my education in English, that was quite the shock, to say the least. And on top of that, having to perform as well in the season. So at that point, it was very evident that, it was going to be a challenge, and especially the first year as well. But I think over the years, you kind of learn through getting support, like from coaches, from teammates, from other people just around the team as well, that you can't go through it alone. You have to kind of find those people to talk about things, to figure out kind of who you can lean on and all that. So I think for me, that time at university kind of really impacted kind of my path into what mental health really meant for me.
And for those of you guys who don't know, I'm going to get Carl to talk about himself a little bit. But Carl is actually a stud soccer player. Former soccer player, I guess you'd say, but always an athlete. And he is a mental performance consultant, so helps with athletes of all kind. So Carl, why don't you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and kind of your journey to get to where you are?
Yeah, so where can I start? So yeah, soccer has always been my go-to sport, I want to say, growing up, but I played other sport as well. But I think, again, going through soccer in Ottawa, and it's such a small world, as we talked about a little bit right before
very
this.
Very small, the sport world.
So yeah, I think I grew up in that environment, and then kind of going into university as well. And that's where also I kind of started coaching, because our assistant coach was the technical director of a club there as well. and he got us into coaching some of us as well. So at that point, I think from the first training session, I was like, wow, like, yeah, this is something I can see myself doing for forever, to be fair. Yeah, I think getting to be able to kind of pass on a bit of the knowledge that I think I knew to someone else, and to see them kind of grow and progress was very much kind of touched me as well. And I think, I guess, for the mental performance side of things, it was, again, getting through those challenges, I think, a little bit through my playing days. And at the same time, I think it was, I took a sports psychology course as well at university, and I had a teammate of mine in that course as well, and we were in the season, being able to like talk to each other and see, like, point out, like, hey, like, this is what's happening with the team, like, this is what we can use together, like, going through this as well. So it was such an eye-opening. I think before I kind of was more leaning into the physiotherapy side of things, but at that point it just kind of clicked, like, yeah, this is where I see myself going.
Very cool. Thank you. And Molly, guys, this gal, do you know how high she dives? Like, I was watching videos of her this week. I don't even know how you do it. Not only is she a high diver, she's a TikTok star as well. So I'm going to get her to tell you a little bit about herself as well.
Yes. Who here has TikTok by a raise of hands? I know you all have TikTok. Come on. It's 2023. So if you've ever seen someone jumping off something really high on your TikTok, that's me. And I absolutely love it. I'm a Team Canada high diver and Red Bull cliff diver. And I travel the world, and I jump from, heights of over 6 stories high, 20 meters to 23 meters. And it's a passion of mine. I've fallen in love with the sport. But I've also had a lot of struggles growing up. Being in a judged sport, I was a diver in a really small town up north in Thunder Bay, Ontario. And I grew up there. I fell in love with diving. I started representing Canada at a really young age. And I started comparing myself to other people. This was really difficult for me because in a judged sport, you're always striving for perfection, and you're trying to get these 10 out of 10s, and you start to look at yourself like you're not good enough for perfection. And this was really hard at 11 years old when, I couldn't reach these 10 out of 10s. And I was like, is it me? Is it my appearance? And that's when I realized that, I was going through body dysmorphia, and I led to binge eating disorder, and I felt alone in my journey. And I don't think anyone deserves to ever feel alone in their mental health story, and it's a really scary time to not open up and feel like you have people to go to. Now there's so many resources that we can go to, but it took a long time for me to realize that your appearance doesn't limit your dreams, and that's my message today.
I love that, and that's so it hits home, and it's meaningful for you guys to understand that the impact that it has when we start comparing to others, especially on social media or the people around, when we're constantly comparing and looking at what we don't have instead of what we do have, that can cause real havoc on our mental stress and mental health. And I love Molly's message that, we need to look internal of what we have. And I guess, Molly, to you first is, how did coaches influence this, or how could they help you in this process, or how did they?
Yeah, so I've had an array of coaches over the years, some amazing and some not so amazing. When I was a teenager, probably around you guys' ages, I had a coach come up to me and say, "You're too big to ever go to the Olympics." And hearing this at 15 years old was, it destroyed me. I thought, okay, just because I'm a taller diver, most of my competitors were 5'2", and I'm out here 5'7", and you spin faster, whatever, if you're smaller. But that didn't mean I couldn't work hard and make my dreams come true. So when I heard this, I was, that's when I started looking at myself like I was the problem. When at the end of the day, I, had so much love and passion for diving, and over time, when I shifted coaches, when I moved to Florida, so I got a scholarship, went down to Florida for diving, and the first thing I did, I said, I don't want a coach that's going to, comment on what I'm doing wrong. I want them to, lift me up and us be a team. And when I got there, the first thing I did was tell my coach, John Proctor, hey, I have a lot of anxiety disorders and I want to be the best diver that I can be. How can we do this together? And he stopped me right there. He said, nope, I scheduled you in. You're meeting with the nutritionist. You're meeting with the mental health performance coach.
Amazing.
I was like, wait, you care about me? Like, that's so special. And I think coaches that, appreciate when athletes come forward and share how they truly feel is really incredible. So that's powerful.
Yeah. I've been fortunate enough to work with some of our top coaches in Canada and beyond, and we often do evaluations on coaches, and I work with teams, and the athletes, the number one thing that athletes say, they want their coaches to care about them beyond their sport. Mm-hmm. Do you care about us beyond our sport, beyond our performance? And I think that is an amazing message for us to educate teachers and coaches on the aspect of really those informal check-ins and how are you, how's your day? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, Molly and I had the opposite, where I was the smallest international keeper in the world. Carl didn't know this, I was a goalkeeper. At the whopping 5'3", I would go against Poland or China or whatever country you can imagine. I'd walk in and the coaches would laugh. I'd be in my full kit and they would just start laughing and be like, oh my goodness, please just shoot overhead. And I had two options in that moment. I had two options. I could be like, yeah, poor me, I'm never going to be good enough. Or I could say, they don't know how fast and quick I am. And I think that's a pathway of mental health and looking, often we talk about there's two avenues. There's a blue wolf and a red wolf. And we both have both of them. We have a blue wolf and a red wolf. The red wolf is sometimes anger and envious and we compare and it's negative self-talk. And then we have the blue wolf that is compassionate and loving and caring. And can we bring the blue wolf more often than the red wolf? And I think that's a great message for our coaches and our athletes today. And that's a great segue for Carl in how do you approach those difficult feelings when they come into your mind during performance or in life?
Yeah. Now we're talking about my feelings or the feelings of an athlete?
Your feelings.
My feelings.
Your experience, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it can get quite difficult sometimes, obviously, to talk about difficult things and big feelings. I think when it comes from knowing, maybe knowing yourself, so you are aware of kind of what is going on inside you, and then it's about kind of being able to speak about it. And I think it probably comes from those relationships you have around you at the end of the day, because if you feel like you have people around you that you can talk to, then you're probably more inclined to talk about those things, right? And sometimes you want to make sure that sometimes you have the right words to kind of talk about these things, but I think at the end of the day it just matters that we kind of talk about it, right? And if you kind of mess up your words, and it's fine at the end of the day, like those are your feelings, and it's just about kind of all of us are just humans at the end of the day, and we all just try to learn from each other, and that's the only thing really we can do at the end of the day.
Thank you. And Molly, what do you do when you start to compare or have a negative self-thought going through during performance or in life? What are some tools that you use?
Yes, my anxiety did not go away. Still got it. But now, I can recognize over the years of diving and learning about myself, I've found that anxiety and fear will always be there. Comparison will always be there. But how you handle it is how it's going to impact your results. And so now when I get these comparative thoughts, I try to think, well, what do I have that they might not? And I think, I'm elegant, I'm tall, I can do these tricks that a lot of girls in the world cannot do. And I find it as a superpower, is being different. You don't want to be like everyone else, because then you won't stand out and you won't be unique to the judges in my sport or for everyone. You want to be different to be yourself, and being yourself is the most beautiful superpower.
Yeah, authentic self, right? I absolutely love that. And I think everyone here today, that's a really important message for us to understand, that know your strengths, know your superpowers. Every single person in this room or listening today has a superpower. Mine may not have been size and strength in my sport, but it was my intellect and speed. And I think for us to be able to state that with confidence and know it, I think that is so important. And I love that Molly said it's a superpower, because it really, really is. Yeah. Carl, going back to you, how can coaches play a role in keeping up with the education and helping athletes through mental health?
Yeah, so I so love the fact that why we're here in the Resource Hub, because as you kind of looked at it last week, I looked at it last week as well, because there are so many things that are helpful for us coaches and to help our athletes as well. And I think, the more you can stay up to date with all these things, the more you can kind of be adaptable, I think, because all athletes are different, and as we said, kind of with a superpower as well, right? So knowing that as a coach, if I now have not only just one way to talk to someone, but kind of 5 different ways, then I can approach athlete A, athlete B differently, knowing that, okay, well, they might respond better this way, and I can recognize these different things as well. Like if I know them as well, I think we talked about caring for our athletes, and it comes about knowing them and being curious about their lives. And when it comes from that, I think at the end of the day, when you have those resources and you care about your athletes, there's so much we can accomplish in supporting them in yes, their performance life, but as well as just their everyday life.
Molly? Yeah.
I love what Carl said. And when you have a coach that treats every athlete differently, it means that they care about each and every one. When you kind of group, I had that growing up where, that coach I talked about earlier, they, saw and treated us all equally, and they didn't realize that each athlete might be going through something different, might have different stories, might have different ways to learning how to be a better athlete. And if your coach doesn't want to learn about how to, talk to each athlete individually, or learn about mental health, or educate themselves on, if an athlete comes forward to you, how to treat them with respect. Because if they're being vulnerable and sharing how they feel, and you're just like, well, you got to push through, that's not what we want to hear. And I think it's really important that coaches, if someone comes up and they're trying to share something really, what could be small in your eyes might be massive for them. Like, coming out to your coach is a massive thing, or telling them you have anxiety, or telling them, something personal about yourself. It takes a lot of bravery, and if the coach doesn't want to listen, then it can make it even worse. So all the coaches out there, please listen.
Beautiful message. With coaches, situational leadership, being able to identify that and bring the best out of our individuals and the team at the same time. I think that is such an amazing, beautiful way to coach and to lead youth and high-performance athletes. When we move into sport and we see kind of mental health and that's coming up, what are some things, Molly, that you did to help manage that?
Moving into sport?
Yes.
For me, it was, overwhelming. It's definitely a process of when you're shifting, when your life changes, when you're going through all these changes, or moving sports, or committing to. I moved to Toronto, to Scarborough actually, to train at the TPASC, and wanted to level up my diving. And it's like all these changes can be overwhelming. And when you shift that mindset into an athletic mindset, it's very, you know, something that you want to move forward with your passion, but you don't want to let all the changes, you know, get in your head. And so I think stick to, you know, what you love. And if anything ever gets stressful or the people around you aren't respecting, you know, what you're stressed with, then try to find that inner circle. I always say, you know, for me personally, when I'm too scared to talk about my mental health struggles, I talk to myself first and I journal it out, or I try to...
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I try to learn what's going on, because it can be scary, you know, telling someone or a coach or a teacher, for example, what's going on in your life if you don't even know what's going on in your life. So try to write it out and work on, you know, what you can learn about yourself, so then you're confident when you approach those people.
Yeah. For those of you who don't do that now, journaling is such an amazing tool for you just to get your thoughts out and your ideas. Sometimes it's even bullet points if you don't like to writing. It doesn't have to be a big Dear Diary, but journaling is such an amazing avenue. Also, if you are struggling in any aspect, practicing mindfulness, even when you eat breakfast or have a cup of tea or you step onto the field, decide to be present and fully there. And I think when we can do that and be fully present, what a difference it makes. Now I'm going to tell you a story right now. It's about failure. How many people in this room have failed before? Right? Right? Okay, so I'm going to continue my story right now. Everyone here for sure has failed before. I am with you. And I think we have two paths when we fail, and this absolutely has to do with mental health. Do we not agree with this? When we fail, we don't make the team, we fail an exam, things aren't going great at home, whatever it may be, you have a choice. You have a choice of the conversation in your mind. Your thoughts come in, and what is your reaction? A long time ago, I love basketball, believe it or not. I played all the wrong sports for my height. I know. And I'm from a small island, Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia, and I told all my friends to try out for the rep team. Every single one of them. I'm like, guys, there's a such thing as this rep basketball team. Everyone needs to try out. Well, guess what happened? They all made it. I did not. We had tryouts for an A basketball team. And you know how they post do they still do that? Post the names? Yeah. A basketball, my name was not on it. And I think when we can realize that failure is a part of life, breakups are a failure of life, feeling sad is a way of life, and what we can do that to overcome, that is the beautiful of being resilient. If we can learn to be resilient, learn to master new skills, be bold, be brave, be kind to each other, I think that is a beautiful message for ourselves, for you guys to understand. So failure is okay. Do we all understand, like, failure is okay? It is a part of us, and that is what molds us to the people that we are. So my next question to you guys, I would like you to kind of tell kind of one of your failures and what you did to kind of move past it.
I didn't know this question was coming.
I'm totally putting them on the spot right now. I think this is such an important thing.
Yeah. The first one that comes to mind for me was, and I guess kind of similar to yours, was not making the kind of regional team for soccer for myself around like 12, 13 years old, I think I was. And again, kind of most of my friends made it as well. And I think the reason that I got from it was that I wasn't fast enough. And I was like, oh, well, okay, that kind of sucks because I can't just become faster like that, right? And so I think for me, kind of going through that and going deeper into kind of figuring out who I am as a player and as a person, I think, and kind of what are my strengths and trying to bring that out when I play, because I can't be the fast player. It's just not who I am. But I can still be Carl, the player who connects with this player, who passes the ball well, who does all these other things well, and maybe I just won't be that, right? I'll still try to be as fast as I can, but kind of playing to your strength, and it starts, I think, again, as we mentioned, kind of that self-awareness, kind of, are you reflecting on who you are as a person? And I think the more you do that, I think the more you can be your true self, really, at the end of the day. So that is my
I love that
story.
Thank you. Molly?
Powerful. Imagine training your whole life to make the Olympics and then not making it. That was me. At 4 years old, I told my mom that I wanted to go to the Olympics. We were watching it on TV. I was like, I want to wear the maple leaf and represent Canada. That is my dream. And I was training really hard. Rio 2016 was coming around the corner. I moved to Toronto. I wanted to, qualify for the Olympics, and top 2 go to the Olympics at Olympic trials, and I was 4th. And when I thought I would be devastated, was actually relief, because that whole year leading up to those Olympic trials, I was struggling with my mental health. And I didn't realize it until I didn't make the Olympics. And sometimes you don't even realize you're struggling until these big failures happen. And then you can step back and realize the perspective from a different level. And that was so important to me. I think it was a blessing in disguise to not make the Olympics, because I needed to learn self-love. I put myself through misery trying to be the smallest I could be, and I was so unhealthy. I needed to speak to someone. I didn't know I was struggling until that moment. So I think the message of this is, when you fail, try to make it a learning opportunity. Try to dig deep and see what you could learn about yourself, because you're going to grow so much more from your failures than winning anything.
Self-awareness is key in all our development, and I love that message, and I'm sure that was really, really hard, but you are now who you are today and diving from even higher.
Yes. We will make the Olympics, 2028.
I love that. In your experience, how do you think coaches could have been aware of that, and of you even maybe being cut from that team? How could they helped you more in that journey?
Yeah, that year I was in Toronto. So like I said, I had a range of coaches. And in Thunder Bay, I had more of a toxic coach. Now I have really amazing coaches. But that year in Toronto, I had a coach that didn't say anything, or didn't recognize anything, or didn't want to learn about why I was showing up to the pool sad, or why I was unmotivated. And he knew I loved diving, but I would show up every day and something was off. And, coaches that go the extra mile to ask you, what's really going on? They can read through the lines through your performance. And those are the coaches that make a difference. And I think if that coach during that really hard time in my life said something that showed that he cared about, my mental health, then who knows where I would have been today. But I think that just goes to show, like, all coaches have an impact, all teachers have an impact, you guys have an impact on your friends. And if you're noticing something's off about your friends, or they're starting to struggle, try to be there for them. You don't have to have all the answers, but you can have, love and kindness for sure.
Yeah, love and kindness for ourselves and others. That's definitely a key message for everyone. Those informal check-ins.
Yes.
They're so important for teachers, for coaches, for friendships. What are some signs, do you think, that athletes, and I'll ask you both this, that athletes, what signs do they have that kind of indicate maybe let's do a check-in with them?
Yeah. I know in diving, it's a very individual sport, but you still want to go and, have fun and enjoy practices. But when you start to distance yourself, me personally, I would show up last minute before practice started. I didn't want to socialize with my teammates. I was like, why are they happy? Like, we're all supposed to be miserable if I'm miserable. And, you know, when you start to notice that someone isn't connecting with the same energy as the rest of the group, that to me is the first sign that, you know, they're either not being included or they're struggling by themselves. And so that's my first indicator.
And Carl, even as a mental performance consultant, what are some signs that you have seen or some repetitive behaviors that you're seeing in athletes or coaches now?
Yeah, so I think it comes from a change from the baseline, right? So as you mentioned, kind of if you are the athlete that's kind of more outgoing and will do all these things, but then after a while, you just keep going to, maybe you show up late, maybe, or you skip your training, or you're not as, you know, outgoing and social, I think, like we mentioned. I think then maybe it's time to recognize that as a coach. And underneath it all, I think it comes from knowing your athlete again. If you take the time again to ask those questions, then you'll figure out, okay, this is maybe where they're at, because maybe they're just kind of the more shy athlete and more reserved, and that's okay as well. And it's about knowing when that changes. So when they're even more isolated, when there's a change in mood, when there's a change in maybe even in kind of nutrition, you might notice kind of a change in, like maybe they look like their body is changing a little bit, and maybe it's normal, but maybe it's also time to kind of ask those questions. And the athlete will, I think, in most cases, will always be more grateful that you asked the question if they know that you care about them as well. If it comes out of the blue and you don't talk to your athletes and that's the first question, then they'll probably be more shocked than anything. But when you have a caring coach, as you've had, then it helps to kind of, he's actually asking about me and my changes that are happening in my life. And I think that's kind of when it's easier to kind of point that out and make those changes.
Cares about me beyond my sport. So important. And to the students here today, recognizing that when you are able to get through something, you will get stronger. You will be more self-aware. You will have more self-love. And all of this comes together when we can get past something that is difficult. When we look at kind of the next steps in mental health and in sport and in coaches, what are some improvements that we still need to make? Molly?
I think this generation is doing an amazing job at recognizing mental health in sport. When you guys were athletes, you know, we still had those old school coaches that really believed mental health injuries were not at the level of physical injuries. Physical injuries are obvious. You see someone with a broken ankle, you're like, okay, you can skip practice today. But someone with depression or anxiety, it's a lot harder for that to be passed and to be recognized as also an injury. So I think for this to be carried forward, we have athletes, you know, like myself and so many others that are promoting their vulnerability, and we're sharing, you know, we might be winning gold medals and winning world championships, but we're also struggling with anxiety in the corner, and we're not alone. And so I think, you know, the more people that we can get to share their truth and share their stories, the better, because it helps us all feel relatable. We all struggle with something. We're all going through things. But if you feel alone in that journey, if you feel like the only way to win a world championship is to be perfect all the time, then you're incorrect, you know, and you're not surrounding yourself with the right community. So I think the more we can get coaches and athletes to have these real conversations about vulnerability and, you know, mental health, the more we're going to see these, you know, comfortable conversations.
And I think that's a great way to lead into questions, because we need to recognize that perfectionism, sometimes we're like, oh, I'm a perfectionist, and we kind of speak highly of it, that this is a really positive thing. And Molly hit it home where we want to be highly driven, but with flexibility. right? And I always say that to my clients is high drive with flexibility, because no one's perfect. And I think recognizing that and being our true authentic self is definitely the avenue and path to go. So I think we're going to open up to questions. Yeah. You guys good with that? Any questions from you guys?
Way at the back. We don't have a microphone for you, but.
Do you want to stand up and read it as loud as you can? Come on up closer if you want.
Maybe I'll give it to the soccer player.
Yeah, so how does my sport help me with my day-to-day life? I think, and I like to say that I'm still an athlete. I want to say that, right? Because I know I came on here as a coach and mental performance consultant, but I think I'll add amateur soccer player as well to that, because I think it's what has led me in my life to make a lot of friends, a lot of connections, and what has allowed me to be kind of healthy in a positive way. And I think so soccer has split all of that, and I want to keep it in my life as well. So I think now I have to understand that I'm not going I'm not going to be at the next World Cup with Canada. I mean, cross your fingers, never know. 2026 is here, right? But as well, kind of understanding kind of what role does soccer now play in my life, right? And I think now it's a way for me to one, stay active. I think two, it's also helping me kind of decompress or vent sometimes, right? Sometimes you know, school can be stressful, right? Work can be stressful. You have all these things in your life, but when it comes back to understanding why you started your sport, right? It was probably at a park with a few friends and a soccer ball, and you started kicking the ball around. And, you know, at the end of the day, kind of that's what I try to keep in my mind. It's like, I'm still that kid that enjoys soccer, and you can give me a soccer ball and a patch of grass, and you can leave me alone for 2 hours, I'll be fine, right? So I think that's kind of that for me, is reminding myself of who that young kid was and why he loved soccer so much, and then I can just kind of go along with that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Come on up. Can you repeat that one more time?
Love this question. He said, has there ever been a time where you didn't feel good enough or didn't fit in? I think this is something that we all go through at some point in our lives. For me, it was when I came back into representing Canada after not making the Olympic team. I now travel all over the world and compete at the World Championships. It's really exciting. But I felt like because I never went to the Olympics, training with the Olympic team, I didn't deserve to be there. And although I might be getting the same World Championship medals as these Olympic divers in a different discipline, I still felt like I wasn't good enough. And that was, you know, something I had to recognize as a normal thought. I don't think we need to push these thoughts away, rather than recognize that these thoughts will come in, but then you need to realize how powerful you are and how much you have to offer as well. So next time you don't feel like you're good enough or you don't fit in, try to ask yourself why. And then for me it was, I am totally here for a different reason. I'm here as a high diver. I'm proud of myself. I do brave things every day, and it took me a long time to be proud of that, but now I feel comfortable at the pool. So thank you for your question. It's very brave to come up.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that one, and again, that goes back to knowing your strengths. I think it doesn't always have to be in sport as well. I remember for myself, in sport, I felt at home. That's why I'm still involved in sport. Sport was home to me, community, friends, failure, it didn't matter. But I do remember a time where I moved to this big city of Toronto. And I'm originally from Nova Scotia. It's called Cape Breton Island, way east coast, and it's a very, very small town. And I remember arriving at University of Toronto to do my doctorate. And everyone was very city. I had my Cape Breton accent, and everyone was in fancy clothes. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know anybody who has a PhD, and here I am going for it, and holy smokes, these people are so smart. And exactly what Molly said, you find your avenues, you become self-aware, you know your strengths, and just surround myself with really, really good people. And that is a really important message as well. Surround yourself with good people. If you're around people that are doing things that maybe are uncomfortable or give you even bad energy, guys, find yourself some good energy people, because the bus that you're on, the people that you allow on your bus, how important is that, right? Who are you putting on your bus? And I think that is essential for your life path. Any other questions? Come on up.
It's so cute. We're clapping. Wow, amazing question. I'll repeat it if you didn't hear that. He said, what can I do if I suspect one of my friends is struggling with mental health, right? This is powerful. First of all, you care about them. That is amazing. This is something that, you know, we all might struggle with. You could see people around you that might be struggling, and you want to know the steps that you can do to be there for them. The first thing you need to know is that you're already doing something. You're already being there. You're already listening. And listening is a really big thing. When someone's struggling around you and they just want to feel heard, you're the first person that they feel comfortable doing that with. And listening is amazing. So that's step one. If it's deeper than that, if they need more than just an ear to listen to, if they need a professional, I would bring it to a teacher. Then they can connect you to, you know, mental health resources for that friend. And you can, you know, help that person out with the proper resources. But the first thing you're doing is amazing by listening. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think also kind of asking them maybe what they might need from you, like if you are there in that and you have that close relationship, and if they've recognized maybe also in themselves that they might need some support. And I think coming and just being like, hey, like I've noticed this and all that, and you know, what can I do for you? Like, is there anything I can do? And it might just be listening, or it might be, I don't know, like accompanying them to see someone, maybe a teacher, so they can talk about it a bit further, right? But coming from that, I think loving and caring place is always kind of the answer, I think.
Thank you so much to our amazing guests today, and thank you guys for being amazing.